this special meeting of the Winchester Select Board. My name is Susan Verdicchio. I serve as chair. With me today are my colleagues Rich Mucci, Mike Betancourt, and Amy Shapiro, who serves as vice chair. We're waiting a couple minutes for Mariano Golyubov, who said he might be a little late. So I'm wondering if I might call on Town Manager Lisa Wong to do her update or her town manager's report first.
Good morning, everyone. So I'll just give a brief report, and then if there's time, I'll actually jump into 3 firefighter appointees that we need to get hired ASAP. So a few events coming up. Memorial Day weekend is here. The official ceremony will take place this Monday, starting at 9:25 a.m. at the World War I Memorial. Also for Juneteenth, there's a ceremony and events organized by the Network for Social Justice and supported by the town that will take place on Tuesday, June 15th via Zoom. The governor has rescinded the face covering order as of May 29th and also is ending the state of emergency on June 15th. So the governor has also filed legislation this week to extend remote town meetings and outdoor dining, but we haven't heard back yet about the timing for the legislature to take these up. So we are preparing for possibly having to have in-person meetings after June 15th. The sustainability director, so the town is finalizing the job description, or it has a job description as adopted by the personnel board, but there are members of the Climate Action Advisory Committee and others that are just doing a final review right now and seeing if anything needs to be tweaked before we advertise for the position in June. So the pilot program, I don't know why that got cut off, but the pilot program will be before the board shortly. The board had asked that we look at whether the recreation department in particular had a recommendation. So they did recommend a fitness course that they'd like to create at Leonard Field, but the cost right now is exceeding the funding available. I think it's about $150,000. So these options will be provided to the board for your review before we finalize the pilot agreement. The MBTA project. So per my communication with the project manager, the MBTA has informed the town that they have finished the demolition project and that the contractor will vacate the area at the end of the week. I haven't gone down there today to see if they've done that, but when they do, or if they have, then Layaway Road will reopen to the public until the larger renovation project starts. We're also working with Senator Lewis's office to set up a meeting with DCR in June to review the Wedgemere agreement and also additional parking at Shannon Beach during the renovation project. And the documents for the easements are being reviewed internally this week. They will be sent to the MBTA ASAP and then finalized for the June 7th board meeting. And then also Eversource is starting work on their 345 line on Washington Street. They're going to start at the Woburn line and head over to, then sort of head inward. They plan to start in actually this weekend and continue the work through September. They have submitted notices to the neighbors. They've also met with town officials, and they are advertising a hotline and an email, and they'll have a field representative that will return any inquiries to this line. So it's 1-800-793-2202, and then they have an email called projectinfo@eversource.com.
Great, thanks, Lisa. Did anyone have any questions for Lisa on any of this stuff? Lots going on.
Susan, I have a couple of questions if I could.
Yep.
Lisa, just in terms of the MBTA project, you mentioned that Laraway Road will reopen to the public. What about the other parking areas? Are those going to be reopened as well?
Yes, yeah. So where they have easements in Aberjona and the Waterfield lots, those will be back open and available.
Okay, good.
Anything else, Rich?
Just on the pilot program,
Mhm.
Lisa, I know when we last talked about it, you had in your proposal um, that the Council on Aging be given, purchase a van. I'm just curious, in order to properly analyze this for the next meeting, if we could also understand, the costs of for a driver and insurance, who's going to be paying that? If it's Council on Aging or if it's, the town that will be picking that up, just so we have a proper way to analyze that. That would be great.
Great. I will send that information over.
Anybody
That's
else?
it. That's
Okay.
it for me. Thanks, Susan.
Yep. Lisa, I actually have a question, and it's a minor one, about the Eversource line. It's not for very much longer, but I'm thinking there are probably students at Morocco who might be walking to school. And just wanted to know what efforts Eversource has made to notify the schools. Or if not, could you double check?
I will. Well, I'm going to give them a call and actually see if I can get a greater explanation of what neighbors they've talked to, and
Mhm.
I will reach out to the schools in particular to see if there's been coordination.
Great, thank you.
Do we want to do the firefighter appointments?
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay, I'll be quick. We have great news. We've had openings in the fire department that Chief Tussin has been doing a great job trying to fill. There are 4 people he's trying to get on very quickly. 3 are ready for today's consideration. I'll be asking the board to waive the 15-day appointment period for John Campbell, Daniel Irardi, and Erica Poitras to the firefighter paramedic positions.
Lisa, are these new hires into the firefighters?
They are.
And are these like the positions that, like as part of the override, we mentioned that we wanted to increase the number of firefighters?
So these are filling long vacant positions. So there are no more positions on the books after these 3 are hired than there were a few years ago. It's just that we were filling these shifts with overtime versus having actual people in the slots.
Yeah, so I mean, the question I asked is because I know town meeting has asked many times, about the contracts, and I mean, would we say that we're finally able to fill long vacant positions because our pay is more competitive with other towns now?
Yes, yeah, we're definitely finding that in every department.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I guess we're ready for a motion.
Okay, can I do these together? Is that okay? Or should I do them separate?
We can do them together.
Okay. So I move that we waive the 15-day waiting period for John Campbell, Daniel Irardi, and Erica Poitras for the firefighter paramedic department.
Second.
So we have to do a roll call vote. Mariano?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Amy?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So it's unanimous. So we'll move into the main items here. This is just to kind of set the stage. This is basically a procedural decision on the part of the select board following the town charter to decide a date for a special election. On the vote and the question from spring town meeting, that was Article 6 on the town meeting warrant with respect to redevelopment of the Waterfield lot, specifically to allow the select board to approve and sign a land development agreement. So that's what the first 2 agenda items are about, the special election date and then the warrant that voters would be reading and using on that date. So I would turn it over to Mary Ellen Lannon, our town clerk, who has some findings and also probably some recommendations about the date.
Hi, good morning, everyone.
I hope you can hear me. Yes. Okay, so I did send to you a couple of pieces of information, one being the election warrant, the other being just the procedural memo on the timing of such election, and then a cost estimate. So I think the most important thing to talk about first is sort of the language that requires you and gives you the permission to call this special election. And Mina and I were just talking about it, just to sort of dot our i's, cross our t's. My memo recommended a 12 noon to 8. This is what we call a referenda election, also known as a special election. But in order to be most conservative, so that we don't have any legal challenges in the future after this vote, Winchester has traditionally done a 12 noon to 8 p.m., but I feel after speaking with legal counsel, it would be best that we stick with the Massachusetts general statute and go 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Just to alleviate any additional controversy or drama that we don't need. So that decision, should you agree to do that after Mina gives you the uptake on it, it will affect slightly the staffing. It's going to increase it somewhere about $4,000 to $6,000 in funding. Stacy and I have talked briefly about the budget, and I do have a decent amount of money to absorb that. So I don't think making that switch to 7 a.m. is a huge cost prohibitor. And my only real concern at this point is I would like to have one location because of the date. Whether we do the 22nd, the 26th, or the 29th, I would have to rally close to 60 poll workers in a very short period of time. And due to the holidays, I don't know that I would be successful in being able to staff 4 separate locations. And in my experience, one location, we have done it before, and I don't think that would be a legal challenge. We would have ample facility at the high school. We would also be having 8 of the ballot boxes, so everyone would be accommodated. And so I would only need about 32 poll workers if we can do one location. And I've already put the word out, and I'm already lining those folks up. So I guess having that quick update on the legalities of the hours, does anyone have any specific questions that they have of me?
Mary Ellen, can I just chime in very briefly on the hours piece? Just to be clear, Mary Ellen's right. Actually, state law does allow starting at noon. And I know that Winchester in the past has started at noon. What's not clear is if it ever did that after you have a bylaw. It's not in the charter, but it's in the town bylaw that during all annual town elections and any special town elections, the polls shall open at 7 a.m. and remain open till 8. So that's what I'm referring to. So it's not so much a preference for state law, but actually within your bylaws.
Oh, thank you for that clarification.
Mary Ellen, this is Amy. Can you just speak a little bit to the absentee or mail-in voting that'll be allowed for the special election?
Yes, sure. It is available in both instances. What we call absentee is an excuse application. That would be available to anyone who will be absent from town, religious beliefs, or disabled up until 12 noon the day before the vote. That's standard language. It is a challenge because we are closed to the public. It's difficult to have them come in and vote in person. However, I have to say, Winchester, I have my disabled voters already on speed dial. So we really don't have many absentee voters in this community. Since the early voting came into play, what we also refer to as no excuse voting, that will be based on Massachusetts statute, and it will be till 5 p.m. on June 16th, which is a Wednesday, I believe, if you were to choose the 22nd. And so it's always that Wednesday before. So I'd have to adjust the calendar. But it's basically 5 days before the vote, early voting ends.
So just to clarify, be sure I understand it, if you're requesting an absentee ballot, you have to do that ahead of time. And that's the date you're referring to. There would be a deadline for that.
As soon as we notice the election, we will begin to accept applications. But whether they're absentee or early vote by mail, it is incumbent upon the voter to put the request in. You all might remember that in November and September, the state government mailed you a postcard automatically. That will not happen in this case. We won't be mailing out applications. People must request it, and then we will immediately, forthwith, process them and get them out in the mail. They can also drop them off at town hall because time is of the essence. We can accommodate, the drop box at the front and the rear of the building.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Anyone else have a question?
I just have one question, if I could, Susan.
Sure.
For Mary Ellen and Mina, thank you for putting all this together, especially on short notice. I know the last thing that the town clerk's office wants to do is another election. It's been a lot over the past couple of years. And I appreciate, I had the concern about the 12 to 8, so I'm glad that we're moving that, even though it's a little bit more money. And I don't know in the same sense if having it at the high school is going to bring a complaint about disenfranchisement if people that are typically used to going to their normal polling locations. And it makes sense really probably for us in the future to consider the high school as a central polling location. But I guess my concern is I don't want to make any unforced errors at all because I don't think we should be making a habit of this. And I don't think town meeting wants to, or residents. So if it does, I want to make sure that we're not continually in a cycle of legal challenges of things going on.
I can appreciate that. I mean, I in my experience of, over 20 years of running referendums in various states, referendums are difficult to get voter turnout, particularly in the summer months. And so I have seen it, go both ways. I've seen it where you've had a shortened day and the voter turnout has been through the roof. And then I've seen it where it's a long day and you don't hit 15%. I'll leave that up to you. I'm your public servant. I am the bureaucratic administrator of the laws, and I will do whatever you all feel is best to give you the most comfortable level of support that you need for the public. And this has been a very, very challenging time for all of us. And, I want whatever you all believe collectively is going to keep us as calm and as patient and loving towards each other as we can possibly be. So if that means 4 locations and a full day, I'll do whatever you need me to do.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm just, I'm concerned, as I said, that, it's a little bit of a change from our normal course of business. And I think that the town has done an amazing job of encouraging voting and providing really just a greater access to voting for all residents. And I don't want anybody to even suggest at all that we're trying to create confusion or anything like that. I mean, I think the high school is really the best location, probably.
I would like to try it. I have been here 15 years as your clerk. And from the day I arrived, the school department has tried to encourage the clerk's office to find other locations. It is difficult to have the students and the public mingling together. I know this is literally the second to last day after school stops, so I know there won't be children around. But I personally, as your clerk, I would love to try the high school. I would love to see what this is going to look like before I get to a governor's race. And, selfishly for me, just looking at the administration of it, looking at the costs of it, looking at the analyzing of how I can save money for the community, this is something I'm really excited to try the high school. So I would love your support on it. But having said that, I also know that you guys are in a tough spot, and I don't want to be making it difficult for you. I am not here to challenge the people that I work for. So I just will do whatever you want me to do.
Thanks.
What is the total cost? Oh, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question. We're in the kind of 30 grand range, you think, Mary Ellen?
Yeah. Yeah, I think if we were to go all day, I do have some programming that I would need to do for, it's called the RTR system that I like to use when I'm in 4 locations. It helps me manage. You know, it could be up another 4 or 5,000, so maybe 36,000.
36 would be to have it at the different schools versus 28 at the high school.
Oh, wait a minute. I wrote that down earlier.
Mary Ellen, up on the screen, we have the estimate of $28,300.
Yes, I see that, and then I was doing some quick math. Yeah, about another 6. Yeah, I would say 36,000 should cover me if we did have to do 4 locations. But my bigger concern on the 4 locations is I don't know that I can get the staff. I mean, that's a lot of people, 56 to 60 people to pull together with 3 weeks.
Yeah, again, Mary Ellen, I wasn't really suggesting it. I mean, I think the high school is the best option for this particular kind of election, and maybe Mina can weigh in a little bit on that too. Whether, you know, I don't know if you've seen this come back in when people have filed complaints or anything like that, because it seems to be a little litigious already, and I don't want to make any unforced errors and have to continue down this road.
Mike, that's a good question. So while the hours piece, I think there would be some hook for somebody to argue about whether this is, you know, is covered in your bylaws or not. I don't see anything in your bylaws or charter that requires one location or multiple locations versus one location. And I don't see anything in the state general laws that does either. I'm aware of several towns across the state and in some cities, multiple precincts being in one location. So
Right.
I think that the key is the way it's sort of treated is the polling locations for precincts 1 through 4 is in the high school, and so it's certainly not unusual for towns to pool multiple precincts into one location, including just one location across town. So I don't think you're going to have a challenge there. You might have, as you said, as Mary Ellen's pointed out, people might be used to it to 4, and so you may have to answer that question a lot, but I don't think it's legally impermissible.
Thank you.
We already pool precincts in one location, right? So I mean, the BO has 5 and 6, and Morocco is what, 1 and 8.
Yes.
I think we have that. And I think it makes sense to try one location because it might make it, you know, $8,000 per election, and then there's a primary election, and if we can save another $8,000, and
Yes.
you know, we're looking at what, 6 elections over a year. It starts to become a real amount of money, and that town meeting has spent hours debating over $30,000 here, $50,000 there. I think anywhere that we can be a little bit more efficient makes sense.
Thank you. So I guess the other thought is what date you'd like to decide, Susan.
Actually, I had a question. I was just waiting to see if Amy might or anyone else. My question is just along the lines of how you would publicize and get the word out about this location. It is a little new. It's not what people expect.
Sure. What I'd like to do, I'm not required to send out a notice separately to the voter of the change in the polling location unless there's a certain timeline. If the election were further out, so for example, if I change the locations for September's primary, I would need to notify them. You know, I could notify them in August that we're doing a change, sort of a permanent change. But for something like this, I can actually take the warrant, which normally is issued 7 days before the vote, and I'm planning to put the warrant to the printer today, and then I can get that warrant out about 17 days before this vote. And I think that should be ample notification. I will also be doing our typical media outlets, which is always WinCam. They do a scroll for me. I will do a video on WinCam. We will do the town's website. I go to both of the local newspapers and the Patch. So I blanket it the ways that I typically would. And that advertising will also include the ability for people to get absentee ballots and early vote by mail.
And
Mary
then
Ellen-
also,
Oh, sorry,
also,
Susan.
I was going to say that, now that I think about it and I see the chat, there is a sort of turnout requirement, as I understand it, for this particular type of election.
Yes.
Can you just tell us what that is?
Yes, by the charter, there's a requirement on the referenda for special election of a minimum of 20% turnout, and then the majority voting for or against to declare how it's, the winner. Yeah, that threshold is pretty typical for local referenda. I know we had a threshold like that in the state of Connecticut as well.
Do you have an idea? Just go ahead.
I will be would you like me to advertise that threshold? I typically don't.
I don't see the problem in doing that. I was going to ask you if you have a rough idea of the numbers, just a round number. What is that? What are we talking about?
Sure, we're talking about we have 16,000 voters. So we're talking about 3,200 voters need to come to the polls in order for this to make any impact.
Okay.
And yeah, it's hard to say.
We don't do this a lot, and it is a kind of unique situation for the town. Right now, we haven't done this in a long time.
It is, and it's good that you haven't done it in a long time. It really is, because what it means is we're going through a transformation. I think everybody knows that. I think we can all see that across the nation. And these types of provisions in democratic documents, such as a charter or in a bylaw, they're there for the reason when there's transition. And so, we just have to do it.
Well,
And I think Mike has a
I
hand
see
up.
it. I see the hand up. Yeah. Okay. As I said,
Thanks, Susan. My question was, once we vote to move this election warrant forward, do we have the opportunity to pull it back? Say if we sat down with the proponents and we weren't far off and we could agree to something, and is this like after today, that's it?
I can quickly tell you, and I'm sure Mina can chime in legally, but it is a citizens petition that was signed by, over 1,000 people, and 700 were certified. So my understanding of the law is that you cannot pull it back. You can't cancel it. It is on the call of all of those voters. So am I right on that, Mina?
Yeah, Mike, Mary Ellen is right on that. The analog to what you just mentioned is a couple of years ago, I don't remember the exact issue, but there was a state ballot petition where two different sides sort of came to an agreement on a state statute that they'd like to see a legislator implement instead. And what they had to do was basically publicize, we have a solution, vote no and we'll take care of it. Now the voters have to trust that, but that's sort of more of a political answer at the end of the day. The election itself has to go forward and could end up having the results the petitioners asked for at the beginning, regardless of that.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I just, especially that we have still the ground lease portion to negotiate. I mean, there's probably some small room for discussion, but if people are, they're not millions of dollars in difference between, I think what people think should be there and not. So I was hoping there would be some sort of solution to avoid this, and but I guess there isn't.
Susan,
yes.
Thank you, everyone. I think this has been a good discussion. Mina, thank you for weighing in. You addressed the concerns that I had given the bylaws, so I appreciate the amendments that you've recommended for our election. Along the same lines that Mike's talking about, I was just curious. I do want finality in the process, and I'm concerned, obviously that there could be a challenge, and I think we've addressed a lot of those today, so that's good. My one question is, would it be possible if, and I can't believe I'm suggesting this after the 5 nights we went through with town meeting, but a special town meeting could be called, and town meeting could indefinitely postpone the article, or is that ship sailed as well, Mina?
Thanks, Rich. That's a good question. So that ship has sailed in the sense that this is an action of the 2020 annual Springtown meeting, and each town meeting constitutes its own body, not its own public body. And so you would be a later town meeting could could be held after the election to sort of deal with it, but it wouldn't change the fact that you have to go to the election.
Okay, so we're stuck with this election at this point, is what I'm hearing from everyone.
I think that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I guess the
Anyone
question-
else? Yeah, any other questions from members of the board?
Yeah, can I just ask one quick question, Susan? I hope this is
Yes.
quick. So maybe Mina, if you could help me with this. So if with the election, if the voters vote yes, can you tell us what that scenario will bring and know what that scenario would bring?
Sure. And I see that I think there might have been a question in the chat of less than 20% turnout. So I just want to address that at the same time.
Yeah.
So if the voters vote, and actually Mary Ellen can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the yes vote is simply voting on the question before town meeting.
Right.
So if either the voters vote by a majority of yes or fewer than 20% turnout either way, the town meeting vote stands, so that the select board now has the authority to proceed with the LDA and proceed with the ground lease. You don't need to go back to town meeting for the ground lease. That's in the same authorization. And if the more than 20% of voters show up,
Right.
and you get a majority voting no, that would effectively nullify the town meeting authorization for the LDA and the authority to proceed in the ground lease. The LDA, which is already signed, was signed, has language in it in at least 2 different places that it's subject to town meeting approval, which includes the entirety of the town meeting process. So it would include this referendum election. We have, my colleague, Jillian, who you all know, has spoken with Civico's counsel, and they understand that. They understood that from the beginning, but they confirmed they understand that the same way as well. So there's essentially no agreement. It's like if town meeting had voted no to begin with on Article 6. So it sort of just goes back to that. The deposit money that has been provided by Civico so far is being held in escrow. It's not actually, it has not hit town funds. That's on purpose because this was, again, town meeting approval is not really complete until either 5 days had passed or a referendum is passed. So simply the escrow would go back. Other than that, there'd really be no effect. The only other effect this election has on, if there is a yes vote approving it, on all of the pieces of the LDA, is it's effectively kicks back the dates in the land development agreement. The effective date would then be whatever date you decide the election is, or I guess the date, there's a lot of dates triggered off of the effect of the town meeting approval. So instead of that being last Monday, 5 days from town meeting, it would be whatever the election date is.
Susan, can I just ask one last question?
Yes, and Mike seems to have his hand up, but
Sorry.
I do. Go ahead, Rich.
you got 2 more.
Just Mina, like I said, just want to dot our I's and cross our T's on this. Looking at the warrant language, you don't foresee any potential legal challenge to the fact that we're referring people to a link on a website to view the document. Have you seen that before? And is that going to be okay?
I've seen that quite a bit. And actually, I guess I would say 2 things on that. It is the sort of common old school practice was to say, available on, on file with the town clerk and so on. Frankly, in the current moment, that's less convenient than having it on a website, especially since folks couldn't go into town hall for most of the time this was being discussed. The second point is that even that sort of, here's where to find the document is really a matter of trying to make voters informed. The vote could have said, or the warrant article could have said from the beginning, um, to approve a land development agreement and lease, um, to authorize the select board to enter into a land development agreement and lease in such terms as they require. All you really need to do is identify the parcel and basics of the term. So even that is more notice than needed legally. And then I guess the third point, this is sort of in the ship sailed category that you had before, Rich, is from the charters provision, the warrant, the referendum vote needs to match the town meeting vote. So to whatever extent we could have put it in different language. You can't change it now anyway, but I'm comfortable with the language and was that.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mike?
Thanks, Susan. I guess my question too is, what information can the town put out to residents about this? I'm just concerned that a lot of this is being kind of litigated on Facebook, and people are talking past each other, and it seems like we need to correct the record on some really substantive things and a little bit of the history of how we got here, because we were just at town meeting in the fall, and there was substantial and really unanimous support for this project. Maybe we disagree on a few $1,000s here and there, but I think residents need to know that this was the project that the town put forward, and that we need a certain base level of information that everyone can use to talk about.
So as I understand your question, you're asking, could perhaps the town website or on the select board page or on a separate page sort of collect the existing documents and maybe just
like a one-page
the historic documents and a one-page summary of
fact sheet that people can use, that so everyone says, oh well, I don't agree with your numbers, I don't agree. It's I mean, there are hard numbers somewhere that we need to be talking about if that's what people are disagreeing on, and I think that we need to provide it. I know a lot of people are saying, well, go back and watch spring town meeting and fall town meeting. That's not really going to happen. I mean, people aren't going to, I think most people just want the quick and dirty, and to be able to make a decision on their own. And I think that residents will make the right decision to support the project once they have the actual information in front of them.
Well, I wouldn't say quick and dirty, but I've heard the term, but I just want to maybe just double check with Mina in terms of now that there's a ballot question, can the town produce a summary of the factual basis or the record, or do we just put up the documents in one central location like the RFP and the proposal and all that stuff, or can the town manager write up a summary?
Susan, good question. So there is, and those of you who have been on the board through overrides might remember there's an Office of Campaign Finance guidance on this. I guess everybody at this point has been through an override. The answer is towns can always provide more factual information, repackage factual information to answer new questions or to address or to get data that maybe didn't make it out before town meeting. So none of that is an issue. You can certainly do any of that, and town resources can be used for that, under Lisa's discretion, and the town website can be used for that. There's no problem there. The only limitation on, and then as elected board members, you also can express your positions on it. I'm supporting it, or I'm not supporting this vote because, and that's fine. That's within your rights to do. The only real limit is that town resources shouldn't be used to quote unquote campaign in in a in a advocacy type way. So if the town can't print leaflets that say vote yes or vote no on them and put them out, or send recreation staff to go door to door and say you should vote yes. But doing providing information forums, providing website materials, all of that's is appropriate.
So Mina, just
Mina,
sorry, Mariano.
Mariano?
clarification on that. You said, as elected officials, we can use our position and say, I'm in favor of this as a select board member or opposed. But appointed, it's my understanding that appointed members, so like somebody from the planning board or the select board can say, I'm from the select board and I'm in favor or I'm opposed to this. But appointed members are not allowed to do that. So somebody can't say, as a member of finance committee, I'm in favor or I'm opposed. Is that correct?
Not quite, Mariano. A member of the finance committee can certainly say, I happen to be on the town's finance committee, or that the finance committee took a vote even and supports this or doesn't. What they can't do is use public resources. That's the reason I was focusing on the distinction sort of among the people on this call. Myself, Lisa, Mark, and Mary Ellen and Stacy, we only work sort of as a public resource for the town, and so we can't use any of our public resource to say we support or don't support. But the appointed elected is not necessarily the right rubric. So thank you for asking that. It's more so that you're using your own resources. So you as Mariano, or a finance committee member as a finance committee member, or even the board can sort of say our position as a board, or our position as the finance committee is yes or no. It's the using the sort of financial, resources of the town.
Yeah, I understand for OCPF, but I thought there was a difference between appointed and elected from the state ethics guidance, not necessarily OCPF. On using your position for political, on using an appointed position in political advertisements or.
Well, again, if that's sort of if they're using it in a political advertisement, but if you're stating your support or not, I would say it's the same degree as with town meeting, right? It's sort of the equivalent of we endorse this article or don't endorse this article at town meeting. It's just happening in the context of a referendum. I do think if somebody's going to be filming a 30-second ad or putting up an ad on Facebook, I would personally want to think twice and probably review potentially with the State Ethics Commission, the select board voted 4-1 in favor or something as sort of an endorsement of it. Because that does kind of blur the line between electioneering and simply making to the public known a board's position. I mean, that's really what the state guidance is on, is it's okay to let the public know what the bodies in town, either elected or appointed to look over these things, think of the issue. It's not okay to sort of use that platform as a way to sort of try to influence the result one way or another, other than to say, yeah, we support it or we don't support it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
So I just want to kind of rope us all in and say that this first agenda item is about the date. Does anyone have any questions or position comments on, Tuesday rather than Tuesday the 22nd rather than any other date? Yes, Mike.
Oh, sorry, I had my hand up from before.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, I think that it's good that if we're convening the election at the high school, that we also don't do it on a Saturday. And so, I think that the sooner the better in getting this thing moving. And I think it's an indication that most people will still be around and not bailing, because it's really the last day of school just before that, I think. So it seems like the best date for the best outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I would follow Mary Ellen's recommendation just from a staffing standpoint. Her memo indicated vacation schedules of her staff, and certainly this is going to take some manpower with poll workers as well. So certainly, a date as suggested by Mary Ellen seems appropriate.
Yeah, I agree.
And I'm thinking that since we usually have elections on Tuesday, and this, would be a relatively odd thing to have it on a different day, certainly one of the two Tuesdays. And the sooner the better, I think. Because the closer we get to July, the more likely people will be, tuning out or actually leaving town. So that's my inclination.
Great, thank you.
All the dates become effective from the date that the sooner we have it. So I think it's better to have it sooner.
That's true too. Yeah.
All right.
So I think I'm ready for a motion. Or we
Okay.
are ready for a motion.
Okay. So I move that we hold a special election pursuant to Section 2-14 referendum procedures of the Winchester Home Rule Charter on June 22nd.
Is there a
Second.
second? Thank you, Mike. So roll call vote. Rich,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mariano,
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
I vote yes as well. So that's unanimous. Then the second agenda item is, or the second motion would be on the warrant.
So I move to approve the referendum warrant for the special election as presented.
I think,
Second.
Yep.
Hold on.
sorry, Susan, before you
Yes.
do that, I think Mary Ellen was just about to clarify this.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Yeah.
The warrant has the 12 p.m. in it, so,
So,
Oh, right.
and Mary Ellen, I don't know if there's anything else that you need.
yeah, that's correct. If the warrant motion could just be adjusted to say 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, the 22nd.
Okay.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. Change that. Perfect.
So I need to change the motion, Mina, at this point, or is that okay?
It is now as presented, unless there's if everybody's in agreement that that's how it's presented.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So roll call vote on the warrant. Right? I didn't get to that point. Mariano,
Yes.
Rich,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So that that covers those two. We already did the firefighter appointments and the town manager's update. There is a consent agenda with two items on it. The First House Pub amending its hours to open at 10 a.m. on June 5th for breakfast, and also a downtown sidewalk sale license on June 11th and 12th in, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
So I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'm
Second.
sorry. Sorry, just on the First House Pub issue. I don't know if there's people in the audience. I know some people have reached out about, this board and their actions a couple months ago with Black Horse wanting to open up early. So I didn't know if we need to address that, or I just want to be consistent. And if we're doing for one on that day, I don't know what would stop others as well from asking.
That's a good point. I would also be interested to know if that includes serving alcohol.
So that was my question as well. I think the proponent
Okay.
is on. I thought I saw him in the attendees.
I mean, maybe somebody, Lisa, is that part of the process of processing an application to understand what's being served? Let me see. Attendees.
So my understanding was he was not going to be serving alcohol, that he was going to respect his license and serve only when his license allows him to, that he just wanted to serve breakfast. But
Yeah, I think it's Mr. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, so I was approached by some people in the town because the senior parade is coming right by. And I guess there's a limited amount of tickets for the ceremony that morning.
Mhm.
And I could go either way, alcohol or no alcohol.
My preference would be no alcohol.
Not a problem then.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree with that. No alcohol, respect the license and respect. I think there's been a lot of work with Jen Murphy and the coalition around this issue for center businesses, and I know in place. So I think as long as you're serving breakfast, that's fine. My question is, if other restaurants catch wind of this, I mean, are we going to allow them to open as well, or not? I just want to be consistent.
My view is, I think it's the senior parade. We have the restaurants having outdoor dining. I think it's a great opportunity for parents and other family members of the seniors who are going to be parading to be sitting at the high top tables outside, eating breakfast. I agree that alcohol is not needed, especially given that it's a school function. I'd rather see alcohol at the regular hours and not earlier. And if any of the other restaurants would also like to open their outdoor and for breakfast for the senior parade, I would welcome that.
Yeah, and it's just registering that this is coming up, and this is the only meeting that we could make that decision at. So thank you for raising it. I would support it as well. Anybody have any other questions or thoughts on that?
I agree. I think that we should offer to, anyone that's interested.
Okay.
So Lisa, if we do vote that way, is there a way to notify the other establishments that we're doing this? Like I said, I just want to be consistent, and I know Black Horse had come back before I was on the board and tried to do this for an event. So I just want to be consistent that we're fair to everyone in this sense, and I think that's the right decision.
Yes, I can send out a notice.
Thank you.
And I guess, Lisa, is there a date that by which you want them to reach out to your office if they're interested? Because I think we should include that in the motion probably. Or they need to at least say that they need to get approval from your office before.
Yeah, I just think approval from my office. We'll do our best to come. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Mr. O'Rourke.
The question is, sorry, Susan, do we have to have any enforcement mechanism to make sure they're not serving alcohol? I would hope that we don't. This is a special event we're trying out, and I hope that our restaurants will abide by, the policy we're set and not, abuse the good fortune we're giving them to open up early for this cause. And certainly if we catch wind that, they did serve alcohol, that would certainly, I would think, in my opinion, give us pause next time to do something like this. So I would hope that they would all cooperate.
So we have detail out anyways because of all the events. So what I will do is I'll just notify the chief, and he'll notify the people that are on duty to keep an eye out.
Thank you.
So I think we're ready for a motion. Amy, if you can take a crack
something
at it.
out. So I move that we allow restaurants in the downtown Winchester to amend their hours on June 5th to open at 10 a.m. with approval from the town manager's office.
Second.
Okay, so roll call vote. Mariano.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. And the downtown sidewalk sale, since we're not doing that, it's a package deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I move that we approve the downtown sidewalk sale on June 11th and 12th, 2021 from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Second.
Second.
Oh, I guess the tie goes to Mike. Roll call vote. Mariano.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
So Susan, just so I'm clear on our motion, sorry, on the restaurants, Lisa, they're not allowed to serve alcohol, only food, right? I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, I'll make that clear.
I don't know if that needed to be in the motion or not, but I think that was our intentions.
So I think we've covered it all here. Mike, did you mean to raise your hand?
I did. I apologize
Okay.
for
Okay.
doing so. I know we're trying to move on, but in thinking about fall town meeting, I hope maybe we can do something to really connect better with individual precincts and precinct captains on kind of information around the warrant. So we're going to have a ground lease that we're presenting to fall town meeting, and I just want to get out of this cycle of people that have disagreements about what the town is moving forward, just to make everybody feel like they all have the right information and can ask the right questions. So I know some precincts have kind of gotten together on their own over Zoom at certain times, but it seems like we should engage that process in well in advance of the warrant if we can. Just thinking, and not just particularly on that issue, but it seems we our normal forums for discussion, the town managers overview of the warrant articles is not terribly well attended, and so it may give us a sense of what questions people are asking or what things are confusing as well. So just something for the future, so we can avoid referenda and special elections.
I mean, the town manager and I think you back in the day, and Amy as well, we need to do a better job of maybe outreach to precinct captains and to precincts, and encourage them to have meetings and to discuss things and ask questions. I think also it would help if we, as a board, presented these things periodically as they move through whatever process they have, whether it's a dam renovation, a traffic study, or something that does end up on the warrant. That people, if we talk about it, it would end up in the papers, and there would just be more public awareness of what we're all the things that we're doing. So I agree with you.
Yeah, I think, Susan, just a standing agenda item,
Mhm.
maybe, just updates, on the various projects as we go along. I know that would help.
Okay.
Yeah, Susan and I are working, I think it starts with us for sure. And I think Susan and I are working on how we can more regularly in real time get information to you and the public about what's going on with all the departments and all the projects. So
Right.
more to come, but yeah, completely agree.
So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Sorry.
Yeah, so moved.
And
Second.
a second. Okay. Roll call vote. Mariano.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Rich.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a
Have a
nice
good
Thank
weekend.
you.
Happy Memorial Day.
Happy
All right,
Memorial.
I'll need signatures from everybody, so.